Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we dive into the stories and mysteries behind everyday things. Today's question comes from one of our curious viewers, Mia Pigeon 92. Thanks for the suggestion, Mia. You asked, why are subway tunnels tiled? It's something most of us don't think about. You're rushing down grimy steps, dodging a saxophone player, wondering if your train will ever arrive. And all around you are shiny walls covered in little tiles. Why tiles? Why not plain concrete, or brick, or something cheaper? Well, there's a reason the underground looks like a giant bathroom. And it's not just because sometimes it smells like one. Let's uncover the surprisingly practical, sometimes glamorous, and definitely weird history behind tiled subway tunnels, right here on Explaining Everything. First off, let's be honest. Subways are dirty. Not in a left some dishes in the sink kind of way. More in a rats commute here too kind of way. If you've ever taken a deep breath on a subway platform, congratulations. Your lungs now own a limited edition blend of dust, brake particles, and the faint essence of hot dog water. When New York City was building its subway system in the early 1900s, they knew it was going to be filthy. Underground spaces are naturally damp, air doesn't circulate well, and millions of people were going to be walking through them every day. Imagine if those tunnels were just bare concrete or stone. The walls would soak up grime like a sponge. Within months, the whole system would look like the inside of a neglected chimney. Tiles, on the other hand, don't do that. Ceramic is smooth, non-porous, and basically tells dirt, no thanks, keep moving. More importantly, they're easy to clean. If you spray down a tiled wall, the muck slides off. If you spray down a brick wall, the muck just becomes part of the brick's personality forever. In short, tiles were the best defense against the underground turning into a giant cave of soot. They gave subway workers a fighting chance against a problem as eternal as public transit delays: dirt. But the subway designers didn't just stop at functional. They wanted style. Remember, when the first subway opened in New York in 1904, it was supposed to be a symbol of progress and modernity. People weren't used to the idea of zipping under the city in a train. It could have easily felt claustrophobic, gloomy, or worse, cheap. So, the architects brought in ceramic tiles not just for cleanliness, but for beauty. They wanted commuters to feel like they were stepping into a grand public space, not a mine shaft. And the results were stunning. Elegant mosaics, colorful station signs, and even little artworks hidden in the walls. Why tiles? Because they reflected light. Early subways weren't lit by bright LEDs. They had dim bulbs that barely cut through the underground gloom. White tiles bounced what little light they had around the station, making the place feel less like a horror movie set and more like a respectable civic project. And it worked. Imagine walking into a sparkling, tiled station in 1904. You'd feel like you were entering the future. Tiles made the subway not just practical, but dignified. Of course, fast forward 100 years, and sometimes those same walls are covered in graffiti and mystery stains. But the intention was clear. Subways were supposed to be the underground palaces of the modern age. Palaces with rats, but still palaces. Now here's the other big reason: durability. Subways weren't built for a season. They weren't even built for a decade. The goal was to build something that could handle millions of passengers year after year after year. Tiles were perfect for this because they don't wear out easily. People can bump into them. Bags can scrape against them. They can get splashed with rainwater, or worse, and the tiles will still hold up. Concrete might chip, paint will peel. But tiles are basically immortal squares. Plus, if a tile does crack, you can just replace that single piece. It's like Lego for architects. Imagine trying to patch a cracked slab of concrete versus just popping out a broken tile and putting in a new one. It's modular design before anyone was using the word modular. And this long-lasting quality has proven itself. Over a century later, many original tiles in places like New York, London, and Paris are still right there on the walls, quietly mocking the paint job in your living room that somehow chips after 6 months. Tiles weren't just an aesthetic choice, they were a maintenance strategy. When you're building a system that has to survive millions of footsteps, puddles, gum, coffee spills, and the occasional musical performance, tiles are the obvious winner. Finally, here's the sneaky bonus of subway tiles. They gave subways their signature look. When you picture an old-school subway, chances are you're seeing glossy tiles, mosaic signs, maybe a few cracks that scream, "Been here since forever." Without tiles, it's just a basement with trains. With tiles, it's instantly recognizable. The styles spread worldwide. New York, London, Paris. They all embraced tiled stations in their own way. Tiles turned dark tunnels into cultural icons. Sure, cool might be a stretch when you're sweating through delays, but those little squares gave subways personality and even made their way into movies, music videos, and art. Funny enough, what started as pure practicality ended up defining how we picture entire cities. Tiles kept the walls clean in a place that desperately needed help staying clean. They reflected light and made the underground feel more like a civic space than a dungeon. They lasted through decades of wear and tear, and they gave subways their signature look. The funny part is, most commuters probably don't notice the tiles at all. But those little ceramic squares have been there for over a century, quietly making sure the underground is a little cleaner, a little brighter, and a lot more recognizable. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and maybe don't touch the subway walls. It's still dirty. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.